Hello everyone, and welcome to my how to ink hair video. So if you haven't already, please check out my first tutorial how to draw hair. So for this tutorial I used 3 different pens, a Micron size 01, a Micron size 005, and a dry Micron size 03. Now the reason I say dry is because this pen is almost out of ink, and that gives a different feeling than a full ink pen would. So what I mean by this is I'm going to show you a little demonstration right now. The nib is pretty worn down. I've had this pen for I think 3 years, but when you use it, it kind of catches in some places and it doesn't give a continuous line. And I like using a pen like this because it adds a whole different layer of the hair and it helps add texture to it. And one of the things about hair is that you want it to look like a different texture than you would pretty much anything else, because hair has a very unique texture. So that is the dry pen compared to the full pen that's full of ink. So now let's get into the actual drawing hair part. So I've already sketched out my hair, and like I said, if you haven't watched my part 1 tutorial for how to draw hair, please check that out because it'll help you out just a little bit more. So when I ink hair, I split it up into 3 parts. The first part I do with the 0.01 thickness, and this is me basically just outlining the shapes of the hair. So I mentioned in my first video that hair is kind of divided into chunks. So I take the main part of the chunks and I outline that with my 01 pen. I do this really slowly, not too slowly. I try to get as smooth as a line as I possibly can. And for this hair, it's a little bit wavy, and I wanted to show that because it kind of shows a little bit of the texture a bit better with super curly or super straight hair. So like I said, I'm just really simply going along all of the lines with that 0.1 pen. Alright, so when you're done with outlining the hair, then you can go ahead and erase all of those pencil lines because we don't need them anymore. Then I go in with my 005 pen. This pen is significantly smaller than the first one, so the lines are going to be much thinner. And now I'm kind of just following the lines that I made before with the smaller pen. This adds texture and also direction to where the hair is going. And I just go in and add thin lines. And I have them also continuous. So they're starting at the top of the head and continuing down that line without stopping. And then I just continue this for the rest of those chunks of hair, keeping in mind the direction of where I want the hair to go. So for example, I wouldn't have any of these lines going like sideways or like horizontally. They're all going to follow those vertical lines that I made before. And I try to keep these loose as well. If it looks too stiff, it can look rather static, and with hair, something you want to really do is make it look as least static as possible, because hair isn't a static object. So you really want to keep those lines loose and flowy and just going with the direction of the hair. And with this, try not to worry too much about keeping them perfect. It's more important to have smooth lines than completely perfect lines. So just kind of let your hand do its thing and go wherever it wants to go. Alright, now this is the third and final step. So I take that dry pen that I talked about earlier, and now I'm kind of just going in really nilly and just adding like different strands. So I make the roots darker, and I like add some little shadows to the parts of the hair that I know is going to be in shadow. And because the pen is so dry, it isn't as inky. So I can add like a bunch of small fast lines, and it doesn't look too busy or it doesn't look too inked up, I guess, because the pen is dry, and this makes it so that, like, one of the things I hate about inking is when like all the ink bunches up in one place and it looks just kind of messy. But when you have a dry pen, it kind of gets rid of that, and it makes it so you can add smaller details without getting that overworked feeling. So that's why I definitely suggest having a dry pen. If you don't already have a dry pen, that's fine too. But something to keep in the back of your mind, if you do have some pens that are old and worn out, don't get rid of them. Try to work them into whatever way you possibly can. So I like doing this because it really adds a whole layer of dimension that you don't get with just the first two pens. So anyway, Alright, now this step is actually optional, but it's something that I like to do for my own personal style. I go back to that 005 pen and I add some random strands of hair, basically wherever I want them to go. So I like to have some like in her face, some just like flying off the sides of her hair, and this just to me makes it look more fun and loose, and it's something that I like to do. That is pretty much it for my how to ink hair video. Something to keep in mind when inking anything in general is to not try to take it too seriously. I feel like with ink, a lot of artists kind of get like some anxiety about it because it's ink and it's permanent and you can't do any erasing. So my way to combat that is to just be loose with it. If you end up messing up a line, that's okay. Just find out a way to make it work. I feel that making your lines too stiff and worrying about them too much is going to end up hurting the piece more in the long run than it would if you just relaxed and let your hand just kind of do whatever. So I hope you guys found this tutorial useful. Stay tuned for my next tutorial, and also let me know which tutorial you guys would like to see next. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!